Hey Maria, how are you doing?
Hi, how are you? Nice to see you.
Yeah, I'm very well. Thanks so much for agreeing to be part of this virtual interview series. Um, it was really just about feeling a bit isolated in lockdown and wanting
Mm,
to reach out to people and find out how everyone's been coping and just have a bit of a reflection really.
yeah,
So
great.
so
Thanks
pleased to
for
have you on
inviting
board.
me, right?
Um, we'll just go straight into it. I'm imagining this will take maybe like half an hour, 40 minutes. We'll see when Zoom like chucks us off, basically.
Okay.
So first of all, do you want to just like introduce yourself, explain what your business is and what kind of work that you do?
Yeah, sure. My name is María Gómez. I'm a furniture designer and maker, and I'm co-owner at Byron Gómez Furniture. We are a little studio. It's my partner Charlie, me, and Ollie. We have one employee since October last year. And we specialize in bespoke freestanding wooden furniture. And yeah, we've been going on for 5 years. Charlie and I met while we were studying furniture, and then we sort of decided to to set up a workshop, and it's now been 5 years, and it's been really, really great. It's been up and down for sure. It hasn't been easy, but yeah, it's good.
Oh, brilliant. I'm just gonna show off my technical skills here and try and share my screen. Oh no. I know. Right. I want to just show people some examples of your work so we can have that kind of just this little slideshow going on.
Yes.
There we go. So I don't know if you want to pick any of the pieces out that are just flashing up on screen.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, well, that sideboard there, it's a Clara sideboard, which we designed for Ilse Crawford, for Studio Ilse, who is an interior design company in London. Their interiors are really, really beautiful. They commissioned two sideboards in 2018, I think. I might be wrong, but I think it was 2018. And they're exactly the same in dimensions, but different materials. So we made one in whitened oak with the end grain veneer. And then we made another one, which was ebonized oak with oak burr veneer on the fronts. And then the two other pieces that are black, the Eleanor coffee table, that one there, and the Aphelion console table are pieces that we designed for Benchmark Furniture. One of them, the Aphelion console, won a design guild mark in 2016 or 17, and that's a collaboration that has been going on since then, and it's been really, really lovely to work with them. And then the cabinet, which is coming up in a second, it's my favorite piece that we've made. It's a Patria cabinet. The Patria cabinet has a lot of kind of emotional significance for me, because I designed that piece thinking about my homeland, Puerto Rico. And I took a lot of inspiration from the colonial architecture and the materials that my grandparents used to have in their house, kind of rocking chairs with rattan and sort of very airy, light pieces. So yeah, that's where that piece comes from, and it's my favorite piece.
Yeah, I can totally see why. And most of those pieces that we saw, like, what's the word? Perspective pieces? Is that the right word? When you don't necessarily make it for a client, you are making like a part of your
Speculative.
range. Speculative.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So
I've been at work all day.
yeah, well, the Aphelion console and the Patria cabinet we designed in our studio, and then we decided to to use the Aphelion console for benchmark, but the Eleanor coffee table we designed specifically for their collection. And the sideboard, it was a commissioned piece, so that was specifically designed for a project. Yeah.
And how
So
did
we do both things. To be honest, at the beginning, when we started the business, we really wanted to design and make furniture and just sort of make it to order, but that is a lot more difficult than it sounds. Because it's handmade, the price point is always a little bit higher than your usual retail shop furniture. So even though we're still interested in doing that, and in fact, we are designing a new collection of work at the moment, our work has been mostly commission work.
what would you say the split is now between commission and speculative or range work?
Well, I would say 70-30, commission being the most that we do, but we are trying to switch that around a little bit and find maybe like a 60-40 balance between mostly speculative and some commission work, only because we just like designing new things. You know, we just sort of like prototyping, experimenting with materials, and creating things that not just one person can have, but lots of people can have. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said that you and Charlie met when you were studying at furniture school, and I take it that you kind of went straight into business after that, but you'd both perhaps studied on other courses before that, so you were like mature students when you came to furniture. And I'm just kind of because did you study architecture before?
I did. Yes, I did. I did a bachelor's degree in architecture, and Charlie, although he started in architecture, he actually moved on to environmental science. So by the time we went to Williams and Clio, which is a furniture school we went to in Somerset, I was 26 and Charlie was 24, something like that. We were still very naive when we decided to set up a business. We just sort of felt, let's do it without any idea of, how to do it. Yeah.
Well, you've passed the 5-year mark now, so I think that's the main bit where if a business.
Yeah, it's funny because when we started, everyone says it's 3 years, and then some other people were saying it's 5 years, and then other people say it's 7 years. But at the moment, we've been through, so many. I don't want to complain or anything, but it's not easy having your own business. And we've been through so many things that at the moment we are not too worried about it anymore. We're just sort of trying to do what we like, and as long as we can sustain ourselves, it's fine. Yeah.
And did you both kind of come to the decision of running your own business because you weren't a fan of the alternative, or like what was kind of your reason for just thinking like, oh, we need to just give this a go?
I don't know. I think Charlie and I kind of shared the same aesthetics on design, so it sort of kind of happened naturally. But there also was the fact that I was able to come to this country under a visa endorsed by the Arts Council, which was to be a furniture maker here. And we just sort of thought that the process of trying to find a job or anything like that would have been more complicated. And we both had a little bit of savings, so we just sort of decided to go for it. Yeah, which was very naive, but it has worked.
Yeah, exactly, like silver lining.
You just have to go for it. And also the grass is always greener. So, people who set up on their own sometimes feel, and we always think about this and we always talk about it, what would things be if we were working for someone else? But yeah, we're gonna stick with it.
Yeah, because so one of the main topics I kind of wanted to discuss with everyone as part of this series was like, have you ever gone through some form of like career identity existential crisis? Because I kind of feel like I'm hopefully coming out of the other side of that, but I think the past 2 years, I mean, I think this year's been a bit mental for everyone, but yeah, do you feel like you ever, perhaps you went through that after your first degree and that might have been the reason you kind of got into furniture in the first place? I don't know, like, could you tell me a bit about that?
Well, the reason why we got into furniture, it's because we love making. And for example, even though I studied architecture, and I always say, you know, it was really, really good for me to study architecture, I always felt the scale is just too big. I want to be able to control things, and I want to be able to create with my hands. Have we been through crises? Yes, absolutely. There has been many crises. And I think the thing about being in the furniture industry, do you mind me if I ask you, why are you disillusioned with, or why do you feel like you've had that crisis?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just fire the questions back.
Just so that I know where you're coming from. Yeah.
I think I'm a bit clearer on this after speaking with Nancy Hiller on Sunday, who's the first person I interviewed as part of the series. I think it's because I was at Rycote Wood studying like fine furniture design and make, and seeing the only routes that were kind of shown to me were either you're going to be a designer, basically sat on a computer all day doing CAD, or you're going to be a maker and making things for the very rich. I mean, like the 0.1% rich, and like it'll be on their yacht and probably never used or valued. So it was kind of like those were my options, and I was just a bit like, I'm not really that enthused by either. And then I ended up getting a job in industry as a sort of design engineer, which was a lot of computer work. But I thought because the role was sort of a mix between engineering and design, so it did include a lot of like technical things, I thought that would be more my role because of it had a combination of things. But as it turned out, the lifestyle of sitting on a computer 9 till 5 Monday to Friday really wasn't for me either. And also as part of that role, I got to visit lots of different factories around the country in the furniture industry, which were like big scale operations. So it was really interesting to learn about them. But again, I was just like, this isn't for me either. So like,
overwhelming to see those factories.
Yeah.
No, I can see what you mean. I can tell you that our experience has not been exactly like that. It hasn't been like either this or that. There has been a lot of, I mean, that's the thing about working on commission work, that you always have different personalities to work with, and all sorts of clients in terms of what they can afford, which is always a cool challenge when someone says, I want this and I want it to be £2,000, you know, and you think, okay, let me think about it. Let's design something this way or that way, make it work. So I wouldn't say that is true. You know, in my experience, it has been very different. We've had the opportunity to work with loads of different people. You know, we have sold our work nationally and internationally to interior designers and architects. We have worked in collaborations with other companies like Benchmark, and we also did a collaboration with Kate Collin, which is she makes paper lampshades. She's in Scotland.
Yes, I've seen her work in London. Yeah.
So yeah, and then we've also made work for John Makepeace, which is a really, really good opportunity and really interesting opportunity to work for someone like him. So I think, yeah, it's more interesting than that sort of polarized idea. There's a lot to look forward to. But one thing I will say, I mean, it depends what you want to do. In our experience, setting up the workshop ourselves has meant that we have had to learn the hard way. How are we going to make a living out of this? You know, so.
Yeah, well, that's really reassuring to hear, and that's why I'm trying to like reach out to people to be like, what are you doing? How did you manage this? Because I think, and this is a discussion I've definitely had back at Rycote Wood, about how they present the industry and what different avenues they kind of promote for people. Because I know that I wasn't alone in people having this view of like, where do I fit in? What is the reality of coming out of uni with this degree? What jobs can I actually get?
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, obviously you've like made it work and you've kind of reaped the benefits of that, or the excitement of that.
One thing that has helped us a lot to sort of see, you know, how other people make it happen is try and meet as many makers as you can. Go and visit their workshop. And this is something I did, not anymore, but I was doing this with the students at Williams and Clio when I was teaching there, taking them to different workshops with different makers, like people who are making really fine furniture, people who are doing fitted furniture, companies like Aircall, for example, which is basically a factory, and then people who work in little sheds, so that the students can actually see the range of opportunity within the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what was the feedback like when the students went to all those different places?
It was great. I mean, you would see them the next day, like sketching, new ideas, being inspired. Yeah, motivated, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall. Oh yeah, so the furniture makers, the worshipful, or the furniture makers company, that's what they're called.
Yeah.
They do like a student industry tour, which I went on when I was in second year, and my tutor Lynn Jones told me that I think they changed the places that they visited, so they ended up going to Furniture Village, which I didn't go to, but apparently like a lot of the arts, well, like they all study furniture or product design, and so they're all based in like art colleges, and then they went to Furniture Village, and she said like you could just see their souls kind of being like removed. It's just like,
it is kind of heartbreaking when you see, I mean, I don't want to be so dramatic or anything, but when we do Aircall, for example, you know, Aircall has all these beautiful pieces of furniture, but when you go in, it's a factory. It's a factory. There are makers there, but it's not the same thing that you learn where you are on your bench all the time and you literally become completely entwined with this piece that you're making and you become obsessed about it. Yeah, there's not that connection, is there? But it's different. I wouldn't say it's wrong. It's just not for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think having kind of gone through this like the whole of last year, I was kind of like not in my comfort zone, and I think that was a really good thing. And it definitely felt like, oh, the bubble's been popped. Like, which is, and for lots of reasons, you know, like having to work with people who've had different backgrounds to me, and yeah, like it was, I think it was just a big kind of growing up.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say like that. I think that's also kind of part of life, isn't it? Like you create certain expectations and then often reality is different.
Yeah, but then I think part of it was kind of like I was kind of like, oh, obviously I wasn't happy, so I changed my circumstances. I left, I looked for new jobs, and now have 2 part-time roles which seem to be kind of working, and that having the flexibility of part-time work has enabled me to keep doing freelance stuff and kind of side projects.
That's really good.
So yeah, I think part of me is kind of like, oh yes, I do need to grow up and just kind of accept that like there are realities to the industry or like to life, but equally like part of me is just like, no, I'm not going to give up on the dream. So
Give up, absolutely not. No, you just, I think it's important that even though you meet with lots of different makers, for example, when we went to in 2016 we did the Hot House program, which was with the Craft Council, and I think there were maybe like 6 or 7 furniture makers, and everyone had a different business model. Everyone had a different thing going on. So, do not give up. Just do your own thing. Yeah.
And was when you did Hot House, because I was going to ask you about it anyway, so glad you brought it up. So was your cohort, did they arrange the cohorts to do with what craft you practice, or did it just so happen your year was very furniture focused?
Well, the cohort was the Southwest. I think they're doing it differently now. But we had all sorts of people. I think maybe our cohort was, I don't want to lie, but I think maybe like 20 or 25 makers, but there was like textile, ceramic, furniture, drawing, printmaking. So it was a really diverse group of people. And we learned from each other. It didn't have to be only from the furniture makers. Yeah.
And I attended the exhibition that you hosted in, is it called Craft Central, that gallery in Mayfair?
Oh yes, wow, that was ages ago. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so I attended that, and obviously that was an outcome that came out of Hot House, but did any other kind of sort of conclusions come out of that experience for you?
Well, so many. I mean, first of all, we've created a really lovely network of friends that are makers, which we still talk to. We, out of Hot House, came the collaboration with Benchmark Furniture, because we had a whole day at Benchmark. They were showing us around the workshops to all of the furniture makers. And we literally brought one of our pieces in our car and we just got it out, show it to them. And from there, it sort of began the collaboration. Besides that, they do lots of different talks, business mentoring, how to present yourself, photography with Yeshen Venema. He did a talk, and then he was the first professional photographer who did proper photography styled with our furniture, and that was a really great opportunity. We're actually using him again for a project in London in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, lots of things have come from it.
That's such a like ballsy move to like take your furniture in the car and just be like, check this out, Sean.
I know, I remember he was all like, no, I gotta go. I think he had to pick his kids up or something. And we just said, just 1 minute. And we had a tiny little Ford Focus, and we had this table in the woods, and we just took it out. And that was the Aphelion console table.
Right, yeah, the scorched one, or ebonized.
Ebonized, yeah. And then from there, I guess they obviously noticed us, and then everything started from there, which has been a really nice thing. Yeah.
And I think I'm due to interview Heather Scott as well, who I think she was the same year that you did Hot House.
Yeah, Heather.
Yeah. So all these connections, very.
Yeah, honestly, it's just incredible.
And when I was writing my questions to speak to her, I wrote like, I think your work is a really great example of like contemporary craft. And then now I'm thinking about it and I'm like, that's totally how I'd sum up your work as well, because it's, I mean, and I don't know if this was a question I wrote on the list or sent to you, but how much do you kind of value modernity and tradition? And I mean that as like, you know, in terms of like aesthetics and how you actually make the furniture, but also in how like you run the business and your approach to, you know, how much are you like, these are the tried and tested methods I must follow, and how much are you like, let's experiment, you know?
No. I mean, for us, like, it's been changes left and right. You know, we're always trying to adjust to what we can do. We obviously don't have like big machines or CNC or anything like that, and we have great respect for craft. So yes, we might not always be doing handcuff dovetails. We might do like routed finger joints or things like that. But yeah, I think we're always trying to find a balance between form and function, beauty and craft, kind of like all together. Because I think even if people don't recognize it, or maybe they can't point it out, there's something about when things are handmade that there's something different about it, you know, in terms of the feel. And also when you buy handmade, you are literally you're literally sort of what's the word I'm looking for, just literally making one human being very happy basically, because you know, sort of get, it's a very personal thing when you are the maker and the designer and the person who is like picking up the phone, and you're the one writing emails and taking the pictures and doing the social media. It's all very, very personal. Yeah.
When you were kind of saying that just then, I was just thinking like, oh, it's kind of like a gift. You're kind of gifting your craft to someone. But then I remembered, oh no, money does change hands. Like, it's not a gift, it's a business. But
yeah, at the end of the day, yes, we do have to well, you know, to pay the bills, and otherwise it just doesn't work, does it? If you want to do it full time, you got to make it work financially. And it's always been, and I think it always will be, it's not easy making a living out of making furniture, but there, you have to be creative basically. Yeah.
And do you think, how do you kind of rationalize it, I guess, yourself? So like you spoke about the rattan side, no, what do you call it, not a sideboard,
the cabinet.
yeah. Yeah, obviously that one had more of a kind of sentimental value to you, and maybe like was a piece from the heart, whereas I don't know, I'm like guessing you might do some commissions or like bespoke pieces where at the end of the day it's the client's choice, and you might just be like, I'm not happy with that, but like whatever. I don't know.
I can tell you we've done things that no one else knows about. You know, I can tell you we have done things for clients that they just want this thing and they want it well made, and they don't want us to be part of the design, and that's fine. I mean, we're trying not to do that, but sometimes you got to do it. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's maybe not a piece you'd show on your website, but it's still like 1 month's salary.
Yeah, but you don't be that proud, you know, you're making something, and like I said, sometimes you just need the work. And also you learn a lot from it anyways, even if you're making something that you don't think, obviously it has to be something that at least has something to do with us. I wouldn't make something like with gold leaf everywhere or anything like that. But yes, it has happened, and we just have to be flexible. Yeah.
Could you identify a project, does one spring to mind, where you think oh, that was a real learning curve, or like that taught me a lot? And
Oh wow, so many.
I'm sure.
Um, I think there's always that in all of the projects, even if you're doing speculative work, or maybe you yourself are sort of taking the risk because you sort of make something and then you price it and see, or it's never going to sell or something like that. There's always a little bit of that, whether it has to do with the making and how can you be more efficient, or maybe we could have used different materials, or even like the approach of how you communicate with clients and things like that. Yeah, there's always something to learn. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm hearing about it all. I don't know, it just kind of sounds really fun, and like, yeah, I know there's the reality of like it's hard work, but like I'm just imagining you both in your workshop just like making and it sounds great.
One thing I can say, no day is the same. It's always different. Like sometimes you are on the computer, or sometimes you're making for days, or sometimes you're like pretending you're a photographer, or social media, you know, it's all been, except the making, everything has been a massive learning curve. I wouldn't say except the making, but with the making, we studied furniture making. We didn't study business or photography or, you know, all these kind of other things that come with being a business owner. Yeah. Self-employed. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I didn't realize you'd got your first employee, so like congrats, that's quite a big milestone.
Yeah, it's
and
kind
like
of a shame that this whole thing happened, and poor Oli, he's pretty much been on furlough the same amount he was employed. So he's been with us since October. Oli is a really, really talented furniture maker, and he was one of my students at the school. So we took him on, and now he's on furlough, but we are going to take him back. Yeah.
And was that because well, obviously you'd started teaching by that point because if he was one of your students, but I was going to ask because you moved into, I don't know how often you were teaching. I don't know what the split was between your business and
about
teaching.
2 days a week, plus weekend courses every about 5 or 6 weeks.
And are they weekend courses that you run yourself, or are they through Williams and Cleal as well?
Through the school, but I did, alongside with Jane, we designed the courses, but I was teaching them on my own. Yeah, it was 2-day courses and about 6 to 8 students maximum. And that was really
yeah, I really enjoy teaching.
Stressful, but nice.
Yeah, I can imagine. And was it a lot of beginners, or was it kind of aimed at a sort of more a higher level? What kind of?
All sorts. I think all the courses were designed in a way that you could be, you know, a first timer picking up a chisel or a plane, or someone who has a little bit of experience. And people were still learning, which is nice. Yeah. So we would teach everything from like sharpening your tools to making a project. We had like a box, a tray, a little stool bench. So it was variable and interesting for the students. And we had lots of students who kept coming back, which was nice. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. And yeah, how had you done teaching prior to that, or like how did you find the transition from being a student to then being on the flip side?
Yeah. Well, I was a student there in 2014. So I started teaching there 4 years later after that. So I feel like at that point I felt more confident in my knowledge of just furniture making and woodworking in general. So it wasn't difficult. I enjoy it. Yeah.
Mm.
Nice. Yeah.
I think when I started my teaching roles, I definitely had like imposter syndrome and, well, I don't know. Yeah,
I
do you
would
get
say
that?
I wouldn't say I came in on like, I'm the teacher and I remember the first class I could barely sleep the night before. I was nervous because obviously people are sort of looking up to you and they're expecting to learn skills, and yeah, but you get comfortable with it, and then when you see that the students are actually learning things and they're happy with the class, then it makes a huge difference. Yeah.
Hmm. So I think we've got maybe like 15 minutes left. I don't want to, take up too much of your evening. So maybe we move on to the dreaded lockdown discussion and just like how's COVID been for you guys? Obviously you furloughed your first employee, so that must have been quite a big, I don't know, it's just all changing, isn't it?
When the lockdown started, we were just finishing this quite large fitted job, which was one of, not the first, but one of our first bigger fitted jobs. And then we didn't have Ollie, and this was like a 2.5 meter high wardrobe with massive heavy doors. And even though I make at the workshop these kind of things where I have to lift lots of things because I have a bad back, I have to be very careful. So that was a little bit stressful. But yeah, we did manage to finish everything in time. It was all fine. And yeah, and then we've been just working flat out through the lockdown. I think we had maybe like 2 long weekends because we were in a shared workshop. And at the beginning we were just doing like 3 days, and then the other person came in 3 days, including Saturdays. So yeah, we didn't really have the lockdown experience that everyone else has had. I can't complain at all. I mean, we are healthy. We don't know anyone who's been affected by it, which is fantastic. And besides that, there's many things are happening actually. We have decided to set up our first workshop, which is going to happen in the next few weeks. We've literally been in the past week or so shopping for machines and going to shops and driving everywhere to just sort of see all this secondhand equipment, which is very exciting. And then Charlie and I have had the time and the headspace to design a new collection of work. So we're trying to, I'm not going to say trying, we are going to.
Yeah.
We are going to create a collection that is a little bit more affordable, that is more simplified in its construction. And we want to include materials that we haven't used before, just because we're interested. So yeah, that will be coming up soon. Hopefully by like December or something, we'll be like launching. We got about 6 designs or something like that. So yeah, that's exciting. Yeah. Otherwise, we've just been a lot more relaxed in general. Just sort of, I don't know, the fact that everyone is going through this at the same time in the whole world, for some reason, it just makes at least me feel a little bit more relaxed with things. I'm not sort of not putting so much pressure on myself, yeah.
Well, it sounds like a really positive lockdown experience. Like,
We
I'm sure.
started doing like yoga outside and things like that, we just sort of, yeah, suddenly you realize how fast we live. Even also being in the countryside, we're in Somerset. it's not London. It's still quite high paced. Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that, because I just had this assumption that anyone who was self-employed going through this would be massively, well, I'm sure there are a lot of people who've been massively affected, but it sounds as if you two have been really fortunate, and obviously like through your own real hard work you've like managed to power through, so that's really
Well,
good.
yeah, I think the worst is yet to come. This is just the beginning and we don't know what's going to happen, but we are hoping that things will be fine, and we're just going to try and do our best and, keep staying positive, because otherwise it becomes very hard. Yeah.
And like, so admirable that you're gonna set up your first workshop in 2020. Like, that's the year you set up your workshop, not the year of COVID.
It's kind of crazy. I mean, part of the reason why is because we got a government grant because of COVID, and we now have that little bit of extra money to go into it with that confidence that we can actually buy the machines that we need, and that we can have the space that works for us. Yeah.
And have you bought the workshop, or is it a rent? Like, are you renting the space?
It's going to be rented. It's really near where we are at the moment. It's literally like 2 minutes from the workshop that we are in. It's an old dairy farm, and this cabinet maker who is local to this area has bought this dairy farm, and he's dividing it into workshops where he wants to have different craftspeople for different disciplines, and then he's gonna have a gallery space and a shop and a cafe. So hopefully it would be an interesting space to just keep growing. Yeah.
Oh wow,
I know, it sounds
amazing.
it's like when he told us about it, we thought, wow, this is perfect, let's go for it. So yeah, we are very excited about that. The space is not, our space is ready, but the building is not ready. I think it'll be like 2 years until the cafe and the gallery and all that is good to go.
And can you say who the cabinet maker is? Like, do I know them? Or
his name is Guy Sturgis. His company is Quantock Woodworks. He makes kitchens.
Okay, I haven't heard of him, but I will look him up. That's cool.
Yeah. Quantock Woodworks. Yeah.
So I'll move on to my final question or topic, which is so I'm feeling really positive after our chat, and I'm just wondering, like, what you feel the future of This Girl Makes should be, and what do you feel like our community needs?
I was reading about on your website about the projects that you've done and all that. I don't know, I think it's also positive. I wonder if you could connect with people or from like the Crafts Council or the Arts Council, or maybe you can collaborate on some kind of projects where you can get funding, or to just have a sort of mobile workshop and do different workshops around the Southwest or England. Or I think it's really lovely that you are educating mostly women, no? Am I right in thinking that? Girls and women?
Yeah, to date it's mostly been kind of women and children. So the classes that I offer to younger people tend to be mixed, but I think just through the brand name and all the marketing, I think and it's funny how, like, that's all it needs. All it needs is for the name to be This Girl Makes, and suddenly women are like, oh, I could do that, or like, yeah, that's for me. And it's like, why? It's like simple things. And then I just look at other institutions or organizations that are involved in craft and our industry, and I just think it's so simple. And if we're a creative sector, like, why is this not already being done?
Yeah.
No,
I think it's positive. I think it's great what you're doing, and I just wonder if you can manage to get some support from people like that's what comes to mind, the Craft Council, or even companies like Benchmark or whatever, things like that, who can help you make these projects continue.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and kind of why I've come to do this series, because it's all about connecting, and just the more people you know, it's like who you know, it's not what you know. So like, just the more people you know, the better. And actually hearing that you are only now just setting up your own workshop, I kind of assumed you'd had that for a while. So I think that's one thing I always feel is like a barrier, is that like, oh, I'm never going to be able to afford that space, or like be able to make that commitment. Whereas actually, like, I've got a van, so like I can have a mobile workshop for like
exactly. I mean, it takes time, but I'm sure you can do it, definitely.
Oh, well, thanks so much, Maria, for agreeing to have this chat and for enlightening me as to what you've been up to and what you do.
Thank you for inviting me.
Not a problem. So I'll be sharing this on Instagram, and I think there's maybe about 5 or 6 that are going to be in the series, so keep an eye out. Okay. I'm gonna say goodbye.